Cool. So we are on mute here. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our first Colorist Meetup live stream. So, as I announced earlier, we're going to go and rescue our Colorist Meetup. It was a fantastic event that we were doing last year, and we had some amazing guests, and it was so good for everybody in the industry to be part of it. It was a great way how to share, some ideas and tips, and, we had a great support from all manufacturers, and everybody was giving a thumbs up for this great event. So when this whole thing happened, we decided we're not going to stop, we're going to go live, and this is the first one of our live streams. And I'm so happy to be able to have Alex with us. We've been actually talking to Alex for almost a year, but because of his schedule and our schedule, we never actually managed to properly organize ourselves. So now when this whole kind of live thing happened, we said, come on, Alex, this is a perfect opportunity for us to do it. And actually, Alex was on the holidays, and he managed to even, stop his sabbatical and, come and say, listen, I definitely want to do it. So, Alex, thank you so much for this dedication. I really, really appreciate that. And, I'm just going to wait a little bit more for some people to join in and to see whom we have here. Rob is here. Hello, Rob. And Jerry is here. Dawn Terranova. Hi, Dawn. Oh, Colin is here. Hey, Colin. Good to see you. And Peter Schwartz. Very good, Peter. I told you. Peter was a regular always on our meetups in LA, so it's good to see you joining us virtually as well. And then we have a Kevin and so on. So very good. So thank you guys all for registering and coming. I think it's going to be a great event. I want to just give you a little update to what we will be talking about today, so you just get an idea to what will be happening. First of all, I'm just going to go and give you a little introduction about what's happening with this whole AI. There is lots of R&D going in for big projects that unfortunately not everybody gets access to, but I want to still give an idea to what's happening there. I want to give you an idea to what plugins are available that you can use today that are really working. And then, we're going to get Alex to give us the whole shaboong about Autodesk, because they are certainly, to me at least, leaders in a way how to integrate AI properly in visual post-production. And, this is really the biggest trick. I don't think the problem is what can AI do for us, is how can AI do it for us, because there needs to be a link between this whole technology AI and what it can do for us and how we can integrate it. So there is a mix between traditional skills and AI skills. In terms of the studio projects that we have available at the moment, what we got here is basically probably the most prominent was the work on The Irishman, where they used a lot of the AI to do the facial replacement. And then, of course, there is the project that we're working on, the Color Lab Studio project that does all the automated color matching that is at the moment in use by some kind of high studios. But we are working on a release that's going to be available to everybody. And then also what I really found amazing was this kind of, BBC synthetic weather demo. I'm going to post some links afterwards in a video description, so you're going to be able to see that. But it was actually a great, idea that you could just dial in your location and you would get a synthetic, weather report by a person. So I found it looked actually pretty stunning. Another things that you can find on AI, and these are tools that I kind of played with and I saw them in action and I thought okay, this is really working. There is a plugin by Gigapixel called by Topaz Labs, and it's called Gigapixel. So it's the other way around. Topaz Labs, Gigapixel. It's a relatively inexpensive plugin that's going to do great upscaling. So if you ever have a problem with that, please go ahead and test it. It's fantastic. Then there is a development which I kind of would say is a very early development for the roto work by Cognet, and a plugin is called Cognet. Now I don't know exactly the company name. It's a little OFX plugin for Nuke at the moment, as far as I understand, and it's kind of automated roto tool. And there is also another company called Video Gorillas, and Video Gorillas have got also great upscaling, and I believe they're working on a few other interesting ideas. But let's go now back to New York and say hi to Alex. Alex, can you hear me?
I can hear you just great.
Perfect. So,
how are you doing?
very good. Thank you very much. So, Alex is like a proper industry veteran. I have to say, like, before we start, I just want to, Alex, give a little introduction so people really understand, who you are if they don't know you already. Basically, Alex is working at the moment as a product specialist for Autodesk, and he's going to show us how Flame works at the moment. But what is very interesting about Alex is really his background, which is kind of something that is unusual to find somebody with such a kind of rich experience working for like a software company. So actually, this is really why I kind of was so keen to bring Alex in, because Alex started as by many years ago by producing some shows for MTV and doing some stuff like that. But first kind of company that he founded was called Arc and Tway and Quan, and basically that was one of the very early animation companies that did some very interesting stuff. And then back in 2012, he launched a color department for a company called Detach. And this is really where Alex worked on like some very interesting project, at least that are interesting to us as a colorist, because he was color grading and retouching motion picture projects for some of the biggest photographers like Inez and Vindu, and we remember them because they were first early adopters of Red camera, and they did some great arty, videos for biggest fashion brands using motion and, stills from Red. Then Steven Meisel and Tim Richardson, which are like some of the kind of biggest, photographers, at least in fashion world. So by working with them, he certainly got to work on some of the highest, kind of profile retouching projects that are available in the industry, certainly. And then at one moment he decided, okay, I'm going to now go to Autodesk, but not just to be like their product specialist, but also to help develop the product. And also what he did, he created something called A to Beauty, which is really like what it is. It's like a very complicated process of frequency separation inside the plugin that helps us really retouch a little bit better. So I hope that Alex is actually going to show us some of that plugin, today as well. So Alex, I, hand it over to you. So please go ahead and take us, through your presentation on Autodesk.
Cool, Dado. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to sit and listen to somebody talk about you. That's the first time I think that's happened to me, to be introduced like that. So thank you. It felt really nice. I will say that, well, first of all, I didn't develop A2 Beauty. I designed it with the development team. It was a huge collaboration. It was really fun to do. And I think, when I came to Autodesk, it was great because I was able to take my experience. I didn't come as a developer or a scientist. There's tons of amazingly smart people already in the company, and the product designers themselves, and along, throughout the other parts of Autodesk. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about Flame and how Flame is leveraging AI and machine learning, but we're just one part of a huge company that's doing a lot of research in that area. If you look into the architecture and the manufacturing side, with generative design and all the interesting things that are going on there, Autodesk has definitely been making a big impact for not just the research side, but making products that are getting out there. So hopefully that's what I can show you today in Flame. Yeah, so my role at Autodesk is I'm a shotgun and creative finishing SME, which means I get to travel around visiting all of our clients. I guess hopefully everybody on the call or on the webinar today is staying safe and taking care of themselves and their families. It'll be a while, I guess, before I get to travel again. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity, Dado, to just be in contact with everybody, period. It's a treat. But yeah, so I would visit a lot of the colorists, flame artists around town, Los Angeles, London, Paris, a lot of the big companies that you've heard of. And I get to work both on the flame side, but shotgun. So I do a lot of workflow stuff. In my past, I was able to, when I went to school, I studied engineering, switched to fashion design, of course, because that was my backup plan when I couldn't cut it in engineering. And naturally, that led me into my job becoming a colorist ultimately. So at D-Touch, it was a lot of fun working with the photographers that you mentioned, the brands. Within Esmond Vinud, we got to do the Dior film, the very first Secret Garden film, which had sequels, but that was really exciting because it was one of the first YouTube fashion films that had like millions and millions of views, and it was shown as a trailer in the movie theaters in Paris and during Fashion Week. So it was a really fun time to be in that industry, and I learned a lot from these super, super talented creatives. I mean, it's like working with the great DPs. Fashion photographers have some of the most amazing aesthetics and very interesting challenges. So as I became a colorist, I started adding more beauty skills, and that's how I learned flame. So I used to work in luster. I'm sure there's not a million luster colorists on the call today or on the meeting today, but luster
If there are any
it's
still
still being
left,
used all over. Yeah, no,
yeah,
there's still a bunch out there. Luster's still producing some of the biggest features. If you've watched an Avengers film lately, you've seen a lot of luster work.
yeah.
There's some great stuff. So that was my tool of choice. But when I was in the field, I did a lot of on-set production and color grading, and that's when I learned Resolve. So I had to use Resolve in the field, luster in the studio. And at one point I even started learning Baselight, but then when I joined Autodesk, I decided to stay specialized within the Autodesk environment for now. Yeah, so today I was going to hopefully reintroduce hopefully flame to some of you, maybe introduce to flame for the first time. It's a product that's been around for 25 years. It's historically been a really expensive, hard product to access, hard product to learn. It was kind of up in the stratosphere of like the top VFX supervisors, and artists would access flame and work in these facilities, and you'd pay a whole lot of money to get in there. But things change. As you remember, if you know your history of Resolve, the first product there in hardware was about a $500,000 product, and I think it's a little bit less than that now, without
Just
counting the hardware
about, yeah.
side of it, right? So,
Yes,
it's changed. So, over the years, flame has evolved, and I'm going to show you a few things about what flame is, and then I'll introduce you to some of the color workflows that we're starting to adopt, and then talk about the AI stuff, and hopefully do some Q&A. I told Dado that I am a conversational presenter, so nothing scripted. If you want to ask questions and you ask him, he can interrupt me at any point. I totally want to answer those questions as we go along. But the people who are using film are the people you expect to see. The Mill, MPC, and Frame Store, they're all out there making Super Bowl spots and every other big commercial. There's a lot of great studios like in New York, the ones I work with a lot, like the Artery and Carbon, Lively, ArtJail. They're doing just tons of commercial and episodic work, and Flame is like the heart of that workflow. And if we come back, and they're producing stuff, Netflix, Apple TV, big clients now. They're creating a big need for this type of work. Nice Shoes and Cult, doing a lot of the stuff that I used to do, fashion and beauty work. These were some of my customers. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Technicolor, eFilm, Company 3, you'll still find flame all over the place. You'll still find luster there as well, but a lot of the features, I think over the years, there's been, you lose count, but a lot of Academy Awards have been won on cinematography, on films that are graded with luster. So I'm going to talk more about flame though, and I'm going to talk just a few of the main features that make flame, I think, somewhat unique. Connected Conform is the first part of flame that I'm pretty excited about. It's about just talking about, not showing. It's really more of an administrative part of the tool where you can take a whole lot of production, editorial content. So multiple edits, multiple versions, and the connected conform will walk through all of your versions and abstract that into master shot and sequence timelines. So it takes all the work that you need to do, gives you one kind of holding container that links back to all the original edits that you have. So as you start producing the work, the VFX, it automatically cascades back out into the individual edits. And you don't have to start swapping things out. And it's really quick, just automatically update all those deliverables. Inside Flame, when you move into the creative side, Batch is the other thing I want to mention. Batch is a traditional node-based compositor. It's been, we have, fortunately, a special guest today with us, and he might fill in some of the dates that I missed, but Batch came around, a few years into the Flame life cycle, and it's, node-based compositor, similar to what you'd see in Nuke, or if you're a Fusion user in Resolve, you'd be very comfortable with the same set of tools, floating point compositing, all like in a DAG. It's really one of the first high performance node compositors. Everything in Flame is great because it runs on the GPU. So it's super fast, whether you're on the timeline, whether you're in Batch, it's all the same code running on the GPU, and it gives you really, really fast reaction times. Switching over to Action, that's actually, I think, older than Batch, and it's a production 3D compositing engine. So from the very early days, Flame was known for its ability to work in a 3D space, and that was really exciting because you could take all the layers of a composite and really stagger them and then treat them as 3D elements very easily because it's a native environment. There are other tools that allow you to composite in 3D, but Action is first and foremost a 3D engine. And over the years, we've continued to build on top of that, adding PBR, improving the rendering quality, the ability to work with, FBX's Alembics, reflection mapping, refraction. I'll show you a few examples, but these are just some of our customers' images that have been posted on Facebook, like on our Facebook users group, which is called Logic. If you're interested in Flame, I would say it's the first place you should go and get to know some of the other users of Flame. Very friendly group of people. I think we even have Andy Milkus is one of the founders of Logic on this call today. To give you an example, yeah, he's great. Say hi while you're in the comments.
Hi. So, and also, by the way, sorry to interrupt, I think we have a Will as well here with us, isn't it?
Yep.
And, we're going to ask him if he could maybe join us a little bit later when you finish your presentation. But, in the meantime, guys, I hope that Will's going to be on the chat. So if you have any questions, Will's going to be on hand to answer.
Yes, I will be ready to answer.
I mentioned special guest. Sorry, Will. I should have actually said a special guest named Will Harris, our product manager.
Good to see you here, Will. Thank you for joining as well. Thank you for giving us support.
No problem at all. This is great.
Excellent.
So I'm just going to show you a couple examples. And again, just spit out your questions. If Will doesn't answer them online or you want me to answer them on the call, I will definitely do that. One of the things I really like about Flame, I mentioned 3D. It's not just for 3D layer-based compositing, but this example is, a scene that I built right inside of Flame. It's using 3D imported models. Those two video screens up there are 4K uncompressed video streams inside of Action environment. I'm playing a movie right now, but if I was in Flame, I could turn off some of the light shading and some of the reflections, and this would scrub in real time. And that's the nice thing is you're always working in this environment. And whether you want to integrate 3D and 2D color workflows, 2D effects, it's all one location. And let's see if I can switch to my next. Yeah. So here's a kind of an example of the interface. This is, I mentioned Batch. And if you're familiar with Batch, node-based compositing in general, you generally take clips, you run them through processes. Here we're doing a little bit of a color tweak. We're going to go through our master keyer. We're going to take our green screen, start pulling a key. After that, we can run that through a GMass tracer and then funnel both those two images into Action. So now we just pulled a key and put a background image, but inside Action, because it's that 3D environment, I'm able to composite things like a camera move really easily. And you'll see that I'm instancing one composited element 3 times and putting them in different space. I've added a 3D element. Actually, to be honest, Will added the 3D element. I'm stealing his work here. But it's using our new real-time refractions and reflections. And you see I added a light. So maybe I wanted to relight the scene. I don't just have to draw shapes and light on a 2D image. I can actually put that and put the perspective. And you see, as I rotate this image, this is actually rendered off my laptop. So this is not a high performance machine. I mean, this was actually from my MacBook. So you can see it's a very responsive environment. We try to keep things as real time as possible all the time. The idea is to make sure that, you know, you feel creative and you're not having to work through long, complicated processes. Here's an example of, I believe, some depth map calculation. So this is using depth blur. And you can see as the camera moves, I can adjust where the fall off is. And then if I go back into scrubbing, I can see this is the planes that I'm isolating. Just like Dado mentioned, I have been on sabbatical for like 5 or 6 weeks, mostly focusing on trying to learn some music theory, learn a little bit of Portuguese. And so my brain is a little turned off from my normal job. So if I start stumbling, you have to excuse me just a little bit. I do love talking about Flame though. So anyways, that's a little bit of what Action does. So I wanted to give you just a little taste of both. As far as accessibility, Flame, I mentioned before, was very expensive, like Resolve used to be. We've changed it. We're not giving it away. We're not in the hardware business. So we are selling software and we're trying to invest a lot into our software. If you'd seen the growth path over the last 10 years, you'd be amazed about how many new things we've added to it. But Flame, you know, itself starts in the US. You know, you have to talk to your resellers, but in the US, you're going to see prices around $4,200 a year. We also have some breakout products called Autodesk Flare and Flame Assist, and they're essentially just 2 components where we're taking all the creative tools and focusing them for shot workflow and Flare, and the more kind of timeline and assembly tools, and that's what Flame Assist is. And they go for about half that. But definitely talk to your resellers if you want to, or go to our e-store if you want to find out some more. If you are new to Flame, you're probably wondering how hard it is to learn. We have the Flame Learning channel. I'll give you a link at the end of the presentation where you'll find just tons and tons of videos. I put this 900. I think it might be more than that, but Grant K is just cranks these things out. And every time we have a new release, the day of our new release, he'll have videos for every single new feature. And there's just so much great information, some curriculum style learning, or a lot of task-based and feature-based learning as well, bite-sized videos. So it's very easy to get up to speed in Flame nowadays. You used to require like doing the night shift, waiting for like the main Flame artist to let you on the box at 10 o'clock at night and sleeping on the floor, you know, and then now you can just, you know, get access to like a learning version of Flame, or even the demo, which is we have a 30-day demo. Again, those links will be at the end. We also have the Logic group. Oops, we have Facebook Logic. If you search Logic with a K on Facebook, you'll find that channel. I think we're well over 4,000 members now. It's a great community. There's so many helpful people there, always looking out for each other, and looking out for new users too. It's not one of those crusty old, you know, grumpy old guys who just don't want to see new people. It's like they're always encouraging you to learn and be part of the group. And I always like to show some of the artists that are out there, you know, Anne from the Mill, Andy, who's online with us, Bruno from MPC, Mark, I think Brand New School. I mean, these are people who love Flame, and they know that they couldn't do the job that they do if they didn't have a tool like this. And it's really all about, you know, working at the speed of creativity is what I like to say. That's how the tool feels. And we'll show you some stuff. But what's changed recently in Flame, I talked a little bit about Luster before, but what I wanted to show is that over the years, we would always get people like, why don't you just put Luster inside of Flame? You know, years ago, we had a product called Smoke, and the Smoke was much more timeline based. Flame was much more shot based. And we did merge those 2 code bases together into one unified tool, which became Flame, all Flame itself. And people kept asking for the same process with Luster. And we just felt like Luster's been around a long time. It's a very different type of workflow. It would have caused a lot of rift. So what we did was we released a workflow called the connected color workflow, where you could take Luster and Flame and interactively move timelines back and forth. It's a really beautiful workflow for certain types of work. Luster's super fast. It's a great grading tool creatively. I love working in there, but it was still use two things. So what more recently we're trying to do is bring those two processes tighter. And instead of merging Luster into Flame, what we really wanted to do is replicate and reproduce all of the capabilities, but with a fresh approach. Leveraging all of what's strong about Flame and leveraging what's changed in technology since Luster was built. There's a lot of new workflows. So it's really this whole idea of how color grading, and VFX are converging into one type of workflow. We always have called it creative finishing, but I think you'll see more and more colorists are adopting the title of a finishing artist. I know that if you look at any of Steve Scott's credits recently, he's always a finishing artist, senior finishing artist. And he's very adamant that he doesn't just push color pixels around. He's creating an image with a lot more tools, whatever tools are at his disposal. And so that's what we're trying to fill, that need with the improvements with Flame. And so, with creative compositing, color is a really important part of it. You can't composite well if you don't understand color, period. In fact, a lot of the great colorists have been compositors. A lot of great colorists are compositors. It's a really kind of necessary skill set to do both in some cases. So what we're trying to do is not let colorists have all the fun, but let Flame artists and compositors have some of the fun too, by giving them the same set of tools. And the idea is to be collaborative, not necessarily displace everything that you do in Resolve or Baselight, but hey, you get a graded pass and you're working on your finishing spot and you need to make some color tweaks. You should have access to the same tools to make sure the client is happy at the end of the line without having to go back to another stage of the pipeline and push your images back through just to get a finished product out. And so we're trying to make that process as seamless as possible. And we're going to go look at that in just a second. But what we've done is we've added both a stack and node-based color grading system. So whether you come from Baselight or you come from Resolve or maybe Photoshop, you'll see stuff that you will recognize in this workflow. And because these tools are merged really seamlessly into our existing Flame tool set, you get to take advantage of all the great CG type stuff that we have. So when you import renders, Flame supports EXR passes, and you can take things like a normal pass, for example, and use normals in our keying tool to drive with a little directional widget like this to drive an image that becomes a matte. And what's really great is, like, you may have a great composite that needs to be changed because all of a sudden you get a new plate, or maybe the plate was regraded and you have to relight your CG. Well, it's not just color grading it, but actually maybe, hey, we have some sunlight coming from the side, and just being able to position the source, it's going to define a matte. So these are the types of things that are very easy to do with Flame. And we wanted to make sure this capability was merged with all of the new color grading tools. And that's why it's not just grafting Luster into Flame. And of course, Tangent created the arc. I believe Will was actually very closely involved in the design of this with Stéphane Labrie on our development team to make sure that this product worked with Flame. So you get a full color grading panel. This is the full size, completely full featured, fully customizable setup. And yeah, supports all of the grading tools and runs across other parts of Flame as well. Live demo. All right.
Yoo-hoo! That's
switch
it.
Screens. Hopefully that didn't drag out too long. Try to talk fast.
Yeah, maybe stop sharing on the slide front so we can see you a little bit in on a camera as well. So now people can see you as well, Alex.
Great.
Because we've been like so. Exactly. So
here
Alex,
I am at home. We're quarantined at home, as you can see.
I love the fact that we're all kind of at home now. It's just amazing, that we're all stuck. But Alex, before we start, to the demo part, are you going to be able to show us during your demo some of the color tools that are natively in? Because I understand that most people like to work like Resolve for color and then go to Flame to do all the other stuff. But I understand that you have made quite a bit of an advance in terms of integrating some of those color tools. Are you planning to show us some of that as well?
I think that's pretty much all I want to show you today. I think that because as somebody who's been both a 3D artist, 2D artist, and compositor and colorist, I'm super excited about these tools. So yeah, I would definitely just like to do an overview of what the tools are like. So you'll see the things that are familiar to you as a colorist, and then see what we're doing to make that experience better using what your premise at the beginning is, using and leveraging AI and machine learning to build better tools.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good.
So that's my goal.
Very good. I also just saw there is a comment from a guy who says, "Oh, this feels like a sales pitch." So I can definitely assure you that this first part was just a little bit of a background for you to understand what is Flame and how it works, so that everything that you're going to see, which is now the educational part, doesn't feel like completely out of reach. So I just really wanted to kind of follow up on
I respect that comment. No, I appreciate that comment. I'll be honest. My job, if you saw the slide at the beginning, it said Shotgun. That Shotgun is a production tracking and management software. That's my job. And I'm lucky because I work for this company that sells the tool, makes the tool that I used to use. And I do it kind of half-time, part-time. I love working with Flame. So that's why I get a little excited. I'm not trying to sell you anything, I'm just trying to answer questions and tell you why I love the product and why it works for me. So I've been using it. I've actually graded 2 short films and on the side for my friends, and it's working well. It's
very good.
We can talk about some of the other people. I think we have a couple users online. So
yeah.
Do you want me to switch over and start?
Yes, we're ready. Let's try.
All right, so let's see what we got here. So I have 2 laptops in front of me, by the way. I was presenting on my MacBook here, and I'm going to look over here at my Linux machine.
And it's looking good. The signal is looking absolutely fine.
Everything's there?
Yeah, good. Let's go.
So I am great. I'm not going to talk about Flame in general, except for, there's a lot going on here. I'm just cleaning up my icons. That we could dive in deeper. If people want to learn more about Flame and wanted to do another, event in the future, we are going to be doing more events for when we release our next version. Online, obviously, these events will happen.
Absolutely, we wanna definitely keep following these developments, because I kind of feel that in order for colorists, especially those that are working independently, not inside of post facilities that you have mentioned, like Mail and where you have a teams of visual effects artists already to hand. But let's say an indie colorist who's going to be working now probably from home and what you want to do is you want to be able to offer services that are a little bit better and higher than what everybody else can offer, and being able to master a tool like Flame is actually going to give you that winning edge potentially. I think this is really relevant for all of us because colorists are as you mentioned earlier, they're not necessarily anymore colorists, they are finishers. And finishing does require more than just color.
Exactly.
So, I think being open-minded to, what possibilities out there is essential.
Thank you for, saying that. Yeah. And I probably should have said earlier when I was talking about the mill and some of those customers, they represent, just a small number of customers. We have, many individual artists working from home already. In fact, before I joined Autodesk, that was what I was doing for 2 years, working, from a home laptop and doing most of my work. And I was doing great. there's a lot of work out there nowadays, and I think it's great when you have a comprehensive skill set. Flame is designed to support that skill set. It's not like Flame is going to solve your problems. It's your skills, but being able to jump from one skill to another without having to jump between tools, I think is really our goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, should I jump over here?
Go ahead. Let's move on and show us a little bit, how Flame works, and then give us some examples.
Okay, so if you do know Flame, you'll know it's broken up into a few different tabs. We have like our conform section, which I talked about before. This is our timeline editorial environment. And what we've done is we've added this new effects tab. And I'm going to show you a little bit about this environment. As soon as my mouse starts working again. Okay. So the effects tab is essentially what you would call like a color grading environment. And what it's going to bring is our new storyboard control. So something you're familiar with in any grading tool is being able to see a storyboard of your timeline. You're going to see things like scopes. You're going to see things like your selective controls. So the way we're doing this environment is we're trying to make it very much a HUD-based system so that you can see everything at one view. And the Flame interface is very malleable. You can really change the scale as you want. You can change the views that you have. Here I have scopes on. If I wanted to go to my map views, it's all just when I pull a key, here's the map that comes out. So it's trying to give you everything at once. So that you can move around really quickly. I'm working on a 1920 by 1080 screen, so it's a little bit compact here. Normally you'd have a little bit more breathing room, so keep that in mind. But you'll see you also have the ability to change. If you see that black bar that comes in at the top there, that's just me accidentally going over the zoom controls. So you'll see that within this view, we might want to work on different things. So if I'm in a storyboard mode and I want to see all of my shots in my entire piece, I can switch to a view, and you can save all your custom layouts. So here's a few custom layouts I've already saved. So very quickly can jump into a mode where I can see all the shots through my entire piece. We have things like here's the layout which I just set up for my selective grading. This is where I came in, so it automatically loads my scopes and gives me my stack of grades. I have another view called compare previous and next shots. If I turn off my scopes here, click on the shot, I'll start seeing the surrounding shots no matter where I am in my timeline. So that's kind of the whole idea, is we're trying to give you different ways of working, very quickly jumping in between those different views without having to keep hiding things or moving them around. So if I switch back over to my storyboard groups, we also wanted to be able to manage the shots, and these are very luster style tools that we're looking at here, although they're built from scratch inside of Flame. But if I select shots in my timeline, I can start making groups. And so let's say I want to select these three shots. I'll create a new group and call that car interior. And so now I have a group. And what's really nice about having groups is if I filter, I can isolate my view to just those shots. So now I can start comparing things. And if I wanted to switch to a different set of shots, maybe I want to focus on the shots that have the full car in it. So here's all those shots. If I make this a little smaller, you can also do some interesting things, like maybe I wanted to view certain shots together. So I'll switch to a custom order and just start rearranging the shots, so I can look at shots that maybe are more similar to each other and keep continuity across my work. Just focus on shots that focus on her. And so it's really just being able to select shots, create groups, create layouts, create storyboard views. So if I wanted to start grading now, maybe I'll switch back, turn off my filter, I'll switch back to my selective grading, and we'll look at the rest of the interface. So you'll see over here on the left, this is what we call our manager, and it works very much like, I mean, you could equate it to a base light stack, or more, I think to me it's more like Photoshop layers in a way, where you just have each layer sitting on top of each other. And it's nice because as you're working, you know, we have our primary grade, you know, where we can maybe do a quick, just a quick balance and contrast. And then we start going into a selective. And when I click on my first selective, you'll see I have a grid here. Just helps me, a matrix that helps me kind of store and organize. But as I add selectives, it also gives me a HUD up here that I can select them from. So
and
these are
Alex,
all kind of equated to, yeah.
I see you have something there called log gamma. What is that?
That's my special surprise. I can't tell you that yet.
Okay, okay.
Tell you in just a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Log gamma is really exciting. That's actually coming up just a minute. So anyway, so the idea is, you know, you're managing your selectives here. If I add a couple selectives, I'm just doing some preset midtones, highlights, or maybe, you know, color key. You know, it comes with the diamond keyer by default here laid out. We also have another keyer called the tracer keyer, which is essentially a volume type keyer where you select regions and it does Boolean type calculations to figure out how your keys work. I'm not going to dive into any of the details of this stuff on this call, because otherwise we'll be here for about 4 hours. You'll see some of the presets. If you kind of work your way to the right here, we have like some controls for the key, and those get piped into some key management stuff. So before, if you looked at this in a flame, these would all be multiple nodes that you would create a batch, essentially a batch script or batch graph. And you'd have to have a node for each one of these steps. And so the idea here is we wanted a colorist to be able to sit down in front of Flame and not have to learn all that stuff, but still be able to leverage all the power of having that. So it's very similar to what you would see in other grading tools, and that's what we wanted. We wanted it to be familiar. So as we move over, there's my animation control. I'm working on the toy Wacom here. Tiny little Wacom, so I keep typing off the side of it. It's too small for me. But you use what you got, right? And I'm at home. So yeah, so that the basic keyer controls, like I mentioned, we have the diamond keyer, the tracer keyer. We move over to the right here. Now we're going to see what we call master grade. And master grade is an entire grading engine built in that works in. I show you. We have basically video, scene, linear, and log. So what it's going to do is allow you to control your image based on whatever image you're working in without having to bring it into a standard way of working. So, and these image types are on a per selected basis. So if you wanted to grade in log to do your balancing like I am here, let me go back to my primary grade, then I could actually go to a selective and switch the controls into lift, gamma, gain if I wanted. In this case, today I'm just going to stay in my log controls because I'm comfortable with them for this type of grading. But you'll see in my primary, you have the color wheels. If you wanted to work in a more expanded view, we can view all the color wheels together. In this middle view here, it's giving me my keying and my grading. So I still have all of the controls. They're just a little bit more compact. You know, I mentioned, you know, for the basic controls, you know, doing some brightness and contrast. We are working on the log image. I'm not converting anything. My project, I set it up in ARRI log space, so it's log C. So I have a nice wide open gamut to work in. And I prefer to keep my stuff in log. And then I have a viewing LUT that's displaying based on what images I'm looking at. And what's nice about the way Flame set up is if you tag your images as they come in, and you can automate all that. We have script, it's all name-based tagging or metadata-based tagging, but it will automatically change your viewing rules as I scrub through. So on this little graphics layer, you'll notice that my video screen, my display rules switched into a kind of a video as opposed to my imagery, which is still in log. And that's great because that means I could be grading log images in log, scene linear images in scene linear, and then I could spit them out at the end in their native if I wanted to. I don't have to homogenize them. So you have the option either to convert your files into one homogeneous space or just tag and work in their native spaces as they come in. Let's see, back walking through the interface. Dado did recognize something that's pretty cool. In our log space, we do have something that's called log gamma. And I love this because when I was a luster colorist, I was pretty much a lift gamma gain colorist for most of my career. And that was mainly because I didn't work. There wasn't a lot of ways to work in log at that time. I was in that early digital camera phase where log workflows weren't really established that well. So I just usually worked in lift gamma gain. It made sense to me. But I liked that gamma function, and it was really great because luster had lift gamma gain, but it had a shadow lift gamma gain, a midtones lift gamma gain, and highlights. So you had like these 4 zones that all overlapped, and it gave you this really malleable way to work with your image without keying. You could get very nice little bumps, and the log gamma is giving you that same gamma function. And so if you imagine, a log curve that's like a U, and you want to bump up the middle. That's what this math is doing. And Doug Walker, who's the color scientist at Autodesk, who's also the color scientist that's leading the ASIS projects. He's also involved in ASIS 2.0 and how.
Oh yeah. He's a biggest contributor for the Open CIO at the moment. Really, that he's done so much work there.
He's so smart that every time we go and have meals, I have a headache afterwards because he teaches me too many things at once. No, he's amazing to talk to, but his contributions and understanding of color science is fantastic. So, this is like one of his babies that he made sure that was in here because he was trying to make a tool that kind of solved everybody's problems, and that's where having log gamma in here. So you can see if on my scopes, even though my scopes are set up for normalized to a video scale. But you could see I could also switch them to log mode, so I can see. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. Can you?
Yeah, we can.
So you can see this is now logarithmic scale, and I'm just going to go down here to make another selective. And so now when I move my image, you can see that it's literally looking like you had a video image, or video gamma encode. What is it called? Video gamma encoded image. The way the gamma is working on it, but it's still a log image. It's still working like a log image, so it's pretty handy. So that's like the main controls. Again, I told you we have log, video, standard lift gamma gain, and scene linear is very similar to the log controls. It will give you an exposure and contrast instead of brightness.
This is the base grade on base light.
It's very I've been learning a lot about base grade. I have clients use Flame and Baselight together, and you may have heard that Baselight did release the base BLG plugin for Flame, so we have that option. And I was learning a lot about how the color science, how they match, how they don't, how to translate from one to the other. In fact, I think Jeff Kyle's on here. I see, yep, there he is. He was one of the guys I worked with, and I learned a lot about how base grade works through that process. And I think, you could say there's a lot of similarities. And to hammer that point home, if I switch to the next node down here, tone controls. Let me put this back into log. So if I switch to the tone controls, I'm going to go ahead and open that back up. You'll see this is, I think they have different names, but it works very similar. I don't know a lot about Baselight, so I will defer to any of the experts on here about the exact methodology. But what we're doing is we're giving you tone ranges from black, shadows, midtones, highlights, and lines, and we allow you to pin that image. And let's see if I can zoom this up a little bit here. I want to switch this back to a normalized waveform. So go back to the video just so it looks a little more linear. This is so much easier when you have a normal size screen. But I wanted to show you this because we'll look at how some of these controls work. And I've always historically been a colorist who use keying as a last resort, right? The more you can do with the curve, The more you can do with, one of the controls, the more, the more cohesive your image is going to end up. The less you key, the better. I've seen people who do a brilliant job with like 30 keys on one image. And I always felt like, those jobs were the ones where I'd come back, a couple of days later, it's like, oh shoot, that key is buzzing. I missed that one. Or like, there's always those problems. So I was always trying to do as much as I could. And in beauty work, it's really identifying parts of your image, that you want to, kind of compress some of the contrast in the midtones and do things like that. You can go a long ways without even having to key skin. And then we have some new tricks that we're going to show in a little bit. But the idea here is like, if you look at our luminance sliders, and we have some range controls for each one. But if we're doing things like maybe we want to compress shadows, you can see this shadow control is really just controlling and pulling down from that shadow range. If I change the start point or the pivot point, I can collapse that to a much smaller range, right? So
one thing I noticed, like, Alex, which is actually something I never quite, like we have similar controls in DaVinci as well, which they call it log tool.
Yeah.
And but the problem with the log tool is that it breaks image so quickly. Like you literally start tweaking a little bit contrast and the image starts falling apart on the place where it blends from one range to another. And I remember that.
So you mean the curve itself?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the Laster was so good in that blending. Is this like a kind of something you guys imported from Laster, or at least does it behave in the same way?
You saved me the embarrassment of making such a sweeping statement. So thank you for saying that on my behalf, because I feel that way too. That was why I stuck with Luster in my suite, because when I'm with clients, I would push an image around so hard and it would never break. And I always assume a big part of it is my skills, right? I know you can do great grading Resolve, and I've done Prada jobs in Resolve, that I've done full deliveries, beautiful, beautiful work, beautiful photography, and I try to add my bit to it. You can do it in Resolve, no question, but I always found it was just so easy to get there in Luster. And what we've done here is, I think, the same. It's not pulled from Luster. It's rebuilt from scratch, because I had conversations with Doug when he was, coding this, and he was like, how many ranges should we have? And I was like, well, I loved how I kind of had 9 ranges in Luster. And he was like, well, you thought you had 9, but really you had 9 that were overlapping. So it really only averaged out to be about 5. And, we would talk back and forth. And then when he showed me this and I started playing with it, it was the same. It's better. So if you like that feeling in Luster, you will love this feeling here. And you can see that, when I do things like, maybe I just want to pin my blacks. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit more. So, if you want to lock down the black range, would it be helpful if I switched this to a different scope? Just in mono. That's better. So you can see the range that I'm moving my blacks. So I can lock my blacks down, but then open up my shadows. I can set the point where that black is. So I'm doing a whole lot of work here without ever having to do a shadow key or do any kind of gamma type work. It's just really simple, soft fall off. And each one of these has like width control, so I can really control what's happening to the image. Maybe Alex, I want to do some stuff like in.
I'm just a little bit conscious of time, Am I
going too slow?
Yeah. So I think what we need to do is we need to maybe just brush a little bit over color tools and move on to this amazing AI stuff.
I think we're done.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Then let's go
we're pretty much done.
But don't forget, show us the AB Beauty, because majority of time when people are using basically Flame is to do the beauty work. So don't forget. Please show us that A to Beauty, because I think that's a brilliant little feature.
I want to show you that first, actually.
Yeah, let's
show you that first, and then we're going to jump to that other stuff. So let me just open this one shot, and I'm not going to build it. Normally, I would build this for you really quickly, taking about 5 minutes. So this is a shot that one of my old clients, Nez and Vanud, their flame guy, Thomas Gifford, gave me the shot to work with, to play with, because it's a really good example of stuff that's normally shot. It's beautifully shot, but there's always something that they want to do. And I'm going to just zoom in here and give you an example. It's like this type of, blemish. It's a scar, that doesn't, we're not trying to hide part of the image. And so what A2 Beauty does, and if I show you, I'm just going to flip to the kind of end result. What it's designed to do is to use frequency separation to establish more of a dodge and burn approach to beauty work. And I learned these techniques at D-Touch, actually, from Photoshop retouchers. I didn't know anything about this type of beauty work until I watched the Photoshop folks work. And I just tried to proceduralize as much as they could do. And eventually I had like this 30 node tree that did the same type of work. And you can see I'm going to hopefully not go too fast, but if I switch back, you see the beauty mark or the scar there. When I switch forward, it literally, what it's doing, it does not touch your skin detail. It does not touch your grain. You know, the standard process of having to degrain before you do beauty work? You don't have to, because what we're doing is we're isolating the controls so it only works on specific types of things. So you're kind of,
unbelievable.
It's almost like having a double frequency. So if you see that's that mark, there was a mark over here. And what I'm doing is I'm doing two different passes. I'm doing one pass, which is hitting it pretty hard. And you'll see it still has, I can't tell what you can see on YouTube, but it has like these little bumps, but it's keeping all the individual, grain and pores, but just blowing that stuff out. And then the controls themselves do things like, I have a softer pass that, so you see like these little marks here. We just want to clean it up a little bit in this case.
Wow.
And then, smoothing it out. It does wonders on like bags under the eyes. I have a whole demo where I actually do a pavement, because beauty work is not always about people or faces or skin. It's, it's dirty walls, dirty sets, I have clothes that have heavy wrinkles. This tool actually works on that kind of stuff. So the idea is just to use dodge and burn on only the components that you want to keep. And I'll just show you really quickly what the controls look like. It's so we have, basically, this is the frequency separation part. You define the fixed frequencies. The recover details are what you're bringing back in, but it's using a couple different steps. It's a little complicated to show what it's doing, but you're essentially creating an element like this that's dodged and burned back into your play. So that's the fastest I can do HE Beauty. So I'll move on.
Wow.
Unless you have any questions.
No. But that alone is a huge thing, right? That's amazing.
And I'll show you really quickly.
And by the way, Alex, so there is no tracking, no nothing. You're basically just cleaning up based on the frequency.
So there is, in this case, there is tracking for, if you notice, what I do is so I have a mat here, and it's just a quick mat. I do really rough shapes, and then I do a planar track. So it tracks it in, a couple seconds and gives me what I need. And then, once I have those, I'll just isolate a few, like on these elements where I had like the forehead. And you'll see all my mats, my garbage mats show up named for the selective that they're on, which is kind of handy. I didn't mention that before. But even things like, you can see here, she had like a bump here. And what I wanted to do, couldn't really retouch it in the time I had. So select that. So you can see what it's doing. It's trying to take care. It's just dodging and burning. I'm not retouching, but it's keeping all the original grain, and so it just becomes a lot less noticeable. So that's the idea. I'm sure,
it's fast.
Ask Jeff. He's used it on a bunch of stuff. Okay. Yeah, it's very fast. I mean, this is a 4K image, and I'm scrubbing through at about, 3 frames a second. On an HD image, it would probably be real time. I'm 4K image on my laptop, okay?
Okay,
So
okay.
let me get out of A2 Beauty. Thank you for reminding me to show that. And let's talk about some of the other stuff we're working on. I'm going to go back to this spot here. And what we will do is look in our effects tab. So let's just take this image, and I already have it on, just in case I didn't have time to set it up. So instead of doing a key, turn off. Oops. Instead of doing a key, what I wanted to do was use some of the machine learning. I showed you in my earlier demo on the PowerPoint. Remember the little spaceship that was floating in, or big spaceship that was floating above the water, and we were able to pull the normals from the original CG. But that only works if you have the normals. So what we're doing is using similar type of tools to do things like finding normals on faces, finding body, a human, finding the depth of a scene, finding a sky, for example. And so in this case, I have a selective here where, let me turn it back on. And what I have is, you notice under my keyers, I switched to 3D AOV. So if I was working in, if I was working on a CG element, I'd basically be able to just call that map in, but the depth map. In this case, all I have to do is click Create Map. And if I look under the hood, which I haven't showed you yet, but this whole schematic here is, this is not a node graph like in Batch or in Resolve for that matter, where you're taking an information stream and going through nodes. This is a 3D schematic. So it's relationship schematic of position and connections. And it's cool because this is showing me all of my selectives, the nodes that are attached to them. I totally skipped over my part of the demo where I show how to attach things like light rays or glints and glares all running through the same nodes, but we'll do that in the next time around. But you see, this gives me the controls here, but over here on my manager, I still have the ability to kind of resort the order. So it's nice because I don't have to do any repiping of what comes before what. I can add, 2 more keys, and you can see that just by dragging and dropping, rearranging the orders. I can do things like select a specific selective and say, hey, let's put those in parallel pipeline. So if you are one of those colorists who uses a lot of serial and parallel and resolve, you have the same capability here. And what it does is essentially, if you have a bucket of, or a grouping of parallel things together, it does that. All right, I cheated. I went back into grading. Let me get back to what I was doing. We'll look at our image. Let me just turn these off, and we'll go back to our first selective, second selective here. So this selective.
So is this like a depth-based selective?
Yeah. So what I did, let me get back to where I am. So that's why I need you to talk to me, Dado. I just go all over the place.
No worries, no worries. So basically what you did is you used the AI tool to analyze the depth.
Yeah. So what it's doing, it's saying I need to create a map, and what I meant to show you in the schematic is that it's adding this Z depth node to, I can see it even here. It's adding that Z depth, and then I'm taking that Z depth and piping that into this map. So on my selective, I think in all of this talking, I've created a whole bunch of unnecessary things. So my distance, give me 1 second. I'm going to just reset something here. My tablet would come to life.
What I think, what worked really well, Alex, I remember when you showed me, those kind of, what was it, soldiers or something like that on a depth, that shot, when you kind of, used your depth calculation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wanted to just do that here.
One.
All right, so
yes.
I reset yeah. All right, I'm sorry about that. Back on point. So I have a depth calculation. You'll see that
so wait, I need to just explain a little bit what's happening here. Sorry to interrupt you. So what's happening is this. So you want to sometimes separate things, and what we have at the moment is we can key them. If we can't key them, we have to roto them and track them. So basically, but if we can calculate depth in the shot, if we know what's in front and what's at the back, this is another way of how to separate things in the shot. So, Alex, can you now show us just the depth layer calculation that you had earlier on the right-hand side?
I've activated, and all I'm going to do is take the Z depth. This is floating point information, so it's calculating a 32-bit floating point depth map. And as I raise it, you can see I'm just bringing in the depth, and I'm creating a black to white key.
Perfect.
If I wanted to manipulate it, maybe make the gain, one way or the other. So,
so that basically helps you create the separation, so that, for example, you could be affecting only people, only actors, because they are in front of the background. So you could basically do the separation just on the actors. Only using the depth analysis.
So in this case, what I wanted to do, in this case, I had a little bit of grading I wanted to do on the back. So what I did is I found kind of a nice little balance here where they were white, and I went down to black, so I can see a little bit of fall. And then I just inverted it. And what it allowed me to do is now in the background, start making changes, just so like maybe I wanted to take a little actually, that's what I did. I wanted to take a little saturation out. I want to maybe just bring the brightness down in the background, but not affect them, so that's the idea. This is using depth map, but we also I could accomplish something similar with our semantic here. So I'm just going to turn that one off and create a new one. So I'm going to take another selective.
Okay, so before you carry on doing that, Alex, and I'm just going to basically explain what is semantic here. So there is a discipline inside the AI which is called semantic segmentation. And semantic segmentation means that machine learning can recognize the content and separate elements of the content based on what's in the shot, semantically recognize. So it means, I can recognize a human, I can recognize a sky, I can recognize a tree. And basically, we have to obviously train, model to be able to recognize certain object, but there is already like I think a library of about 1,000 different, elements that can be recognized. So Alex, what you got now is a semantic keyer, and you have selected actor. Is this correct?
Yep, I selected human body. So it's going to identify the 2 human bodies in this specific shot, which is helpful because now I could very easily just give them a little brightness, right? Just to open them up, or maybe give them some sun or something simple like that. Maybe I also just want to work on their faces. So I'll switch to the face map, and it does, you can see it's trying to find, again, I'll reiterate, it's hit or miss. You never know if it's going to do it for you, but it's always going to give you something like right away. And then you can start working with that. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll start in the image node, and then it gets too complicated. So I'll promote. And the beautiful thing about Flame is I can, with one click, promote that one image node into a full batch schematic. And then I can rip that, that key out. I can do some processing and do some more advanced tools.
So basically what you're saying is you take the output of the AI tool, like a semantic segmentation, but go back to human body. That one looked amazing actually. And then basically you can then use that as a starting point, and then maybe add some more, roto work or anything like that, but be able to actually in a very, very quick time, make the separation. Now, what's really good for us, Alex, is that because we work with color, we don't really need 100% qualifiers. We can actually get away with it sometimes a little bit, right?
Yeah. And so what happens if you have 2 people, but you only want to affect one of them? Well, you could switch human body to selected. I'd have a little widget. Just gonna drag it over here. You can see
I
just by
love that.
dragging the widget around. And this is a trackable thing, or I'm not sure if it's trackable, but I can auto key it really quickly just to make sure. And it's going to look for what's the closest human. You can see even the scale of the widget is telling you. I was like, I can't really figure out what's going on. Oh, it got big because now it knows what's going on. So again, it's like giving you feedback right away.
Unbelievable.
So all right, so I talked about the bodies. Again, I guess I'm going too slow, so I'm going to switch over to one more of our semantic keys, which I set up down here so I could do this quickly. So in this case, we saw we had human body, human head. We also have a sky. Because I don't know about you guys, but I had to do a lot of sky color correction. And sometimes you get a sky that's over a blue background, or you just can't identify it because this doesn't use any keying at all. It knows what thousands or hundreds of thousands of skies look like, and it can identify what is in a sky, what's not in a sky. So when I look at that image output, it's automatically going to start trying to trace it down. And so in this case, I think I just, I did some, well, let's see, the incoming image was this, right? So if we built this image up, I did a basic, so yeah, basic primary grade. Then I did a little key up here because I was trying to not make it so sunny, so it matched the next shot a little bit more. And then I wanted to bring some color out of the sky. So all I do is just attach the sky, and then I can just, pump up the saturation or pull a little bit of blue into it. But what happens when I go to my next shot, which has a totally different grade on it? And if I look at this shot, we see I have, let's do it before and after. So it was a different time of day, darker. Just wanted to give it something similar, but I still want that sky shot. So remember I told you about this grid down here. It helps me organize. So I know that on this shot, it was on 2. I had my slot 2 with the sky here. This just kind of is think of this as drawers to store different grades, whereas up here it's giving you the order of operations of your grades. So the names still match. Up here it will always show you the order of operations. But if I go back to this key, and I'm going to switch over to another layout, compare previous next shots. And what I'm going to do is just take this 3.
Alex, we just had a question coming through. I wanted to ask you, how long does it take to calculate semantic here?
So, all right, you just saw me drag it from one shot to the other. I had basically enable it, and I probably about 2 seconds there. So there was a slight lag, but now it's enabled. So if I go to this shot and view and scrub back and forth, it's real time. Right now, if I just put on loop and hit play, I know this is Zoom and then YouTube, and what you're seeing on your end is not real time, but on my end, I'm not even dropping frames. So right now I only have 3 selectives. I could probably add a good 12 on this machine, 15, and still retain full real time. But yeah, so this sky, if I go back here.
Wow. So basically,
being calculated. And I didn't have to do anything.
Wow, that is actually impressive. That's impressive. And I think
here.
I think this is the most a useful use of this semantic segmentation that I've seen so far. I have to be honest with you, I've done a lot of testing with it, and it was just getting masks that, were completely useless then sometimes. But now with this, I can get a mask, and if I don't like it, I can then change that mask. But I've never seen it work in such a speed as you have it here.
Yeah, no, the human body, all the semantic keys are real time on a good machine. They respond instantly. Even the normals map, same thing. The depth map can slow down a little bit more, maybe not be quite real time. I mean, it really depends on the shot and the resolution.
And we'll just post it in the thread.
But we have a caching.
Yeah, we'll just post it in a thread that if you have a RTX card from NVIDIA, then the Tensor cores can basically speed it up immensely.
Immensely, yes. And you'll see that even if you didn't have the tensor core and to the RTX, the auto caching, yeah. So I would play through one time, it would cache that, and then on any system it would be real time, and it's fast, even so.
Unbelievable.
You know.
Okay, Alex, show
great.
us
So
now
I've shown
the
you a bunch of
face
that.
relighting. The face relighting. This is my
Right.
kind of, you know, one that I think people will just fall off their chairs if they haven't seen that one before. I actually remember last year when I saw it, I was, I loved it.
So if I come back to my effects tab, and oh, I gave away my punchline already. Sorry. Let's just leave it there. So in this case, I have I usually like to build things on the fly for people, but because I knew we'd have limited time, I had them set up already. So what I did on this image was I started with the semantic here with the basic primary grade. So basically darkening the image. It's a log. I think it's a Sony log C image. I use the face semantic here just to help me control the face. But then what I wanted to do was use the normal maps like you would do on the spaceship. And what the normal maps look like is this. And so what it's doing is using traditional 3D normal map. And if you notice, as I scrub, let me get back to my controls here. Sorry, I accidentally turned it off. So you could see, actually, when I just turned it off and turned it back on, it took a couple seconds. So that's like a typical thing when you activate it the first time. But then once it's activated, I'm going to actually put that on my primary screen, which is 8. But you can see now I'm scrubbing and getting, again, pretty close to real time, if not real time. I'm using animated region of interest to help me isolate what I want. And you'll notice there's a lot of extra garbage. It is, again, it's a tool that you use for one part of it. In this case, I'm really anxious to get like her face. And so now that I have that, if I go back to my selective, I can turn that on, and I'm just, created a shape here that is tracked, to help me isolate, but I'm still using that face. So if I switch now to look at, back to the key here. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm taking that normals map that the AI tool generated, I'm going down to my 3D AOV controls, and here's my widget. And I pointed this out in the PowerPoint part of it, but I can say, hey, I want to light from this side. Maybe I want to slide the light, I want to relight from this side. So I'm basically just wrapping around her head. It's cool. And then, so now that becomes the map. Maybe I want to tighten it up. I can lower the fall off or threshold, So I'm controlling really what part of the face I want to change. And then once that's done, it's really good, maybe just raise the midtones, highlight, or, I should zoom in a little bit there for you. I'll hide the GMask now. But yeah, so then just adding a little bit of light to her face, maybe it's a wider fall off. So that's the normals map.
This is completely like what we always felt like, how to relight, because you're actually not just putting a mask that's making something brighter, but at the same time you're creating, look, the shadow on her nose, because of the direction of the light. And, like, it's just, amazing, that is a tool, that I feel like it's going to be, the one that we're going to have in grading, like this is really something that is just going to help us so much when we have to, recreate an atmosphere in a scene. Look at that.
Yeah, but I mean, even things like, could you imagine you were comping a shot into an explosion and you shot your actor close up, and there's like something in the background, you could use this to use that other element to kind of help relight. You could use an IBL because this is a compositing tool.
Yeah.
Instead of using just a grading master grade, I could say, hey, let me relight it with the background plate of the explosion as a IBL, and that image is going to actually add to this image and recolor on the side of her face, and it's going to match the exact background image.
Wow. Wow. I love it. I absolutely love it. But you know what would be interesting too? Yes. Did you want to, what else did you want to show? Tell me. Sorry.
I think we can go back to the, I mean, I know we're,
what I would, yeah, we're a little bit like, you know, like I think we're stretching, but I think what would be very important, let's go first to what you have coming. I really would love, you know, us to kind of open that door a little bit. And I know that it's very difficult for you guys to announce things because you're a publicly traded company and you have to be very careful about it. So Alex, please flash us your, you know, disclosure, you know, please there. I'm super happy. But I would love if you could give our, you know, people some, you know, things that are coming. Let's see. Let's be the first place where you can hear about this stuff.
I stole way too much of Will Harris's time, which was not cool. I'm sorry, Will. But now I'm going to
Alex, you did a great job. You're doing an amazing job. I'm just trying to keep the pace going, you know, so don't
no, I appreciate it.
Totally. And it's a totally right.
I warned you I could talk for hours.
No, but the fact how you explained color tools, it was super important because, you know, everybody in this group is coming from color perspective. So it's so good. Yeah. And, you know, and I'm happy we did that. And I'm happy you explained a little bit about the flame because people can be really afraid of it. It's not something that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars anymore. You can actually really get it. So I'm happy we did that as well. And we saw amazing AI, but show us what's coming because
I'm not going to talk about the science. Okay. So we're going to skip over the science. We'll do more presentations. These are kind of showing the stuff that we saw live, so we don't need to watch it here. Mm-hmm. I will, you know, we do have one thing I'm just going to show you in this film really quickly. Mm-hmm. Oops, I don't need my tablet. Which is that Z depth, which we're looking at. We have a 3D widget. So once the Z depth is calculated, here we're taking a 3D sphere and moving it around to isolate regions in depth. So that then get piped into whatever effects that you want to do, like, you know, putting glares in the distance again. So you're really able to control all of that. Cool. So we saw that. Skies, the road ahead. Will's going to come online now, and we have two things to show. But I'm first going to show you this because the stuff that you see now is developmental, and Will can explain what that means.
Will, are you there?
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Thanks for having us, guys. This has been a lot of fun and great to see the comments and some of the reactions here have been definitely interesting. So yeah, our safe harbor statement is just to remind you that the stuff we're about to show you is not necessarily going to arrive in Flame, but we hope that it will, and just no promises of timeline. But we do a sort of a technology taster process at trade shows typically. We don't think we're going to be doing one this year at NAB. But we visit IBC, SIGGRAPH, and so on and talk to people and then have a bunch of user groups where we like to share our ideas, some prototypes and really take people's temperature, take votes on the most popular projects. So in that spirit, I'd love to show you a couple of these technology taster projects. So the first here is called Physical Defocus, and go ahead and play the video here because this is a tool that we think would really complement either if you had Z-depth coming from a CG render, traditional Z-depth, or you generated it yourself right here in the timeline via that depth generator that Alex was using earlier. So the natural companion might be a really fast GPU accelerated custom bokeh defocus or rack focus effect where you could pick based on depth in space, be able to slice the depth, blend the depth, and understand, how to re-isolate the in-focus part of an object, even on a shot that's got no business being defocused, like this, wide angle of a city. But that's okay. Doesn't have to be physical. It could be just cheating defocus and going for an artistic effect. The key thing about it is it has to be high quality. It has to be clean on edges, and it needs to be interactive. So this is a tool that we think would be valuable. We think, as you can see from this prototype, we've already got it working pretty fast. We think this would be cool. And then
Wow.
it could allow you to
Wait, Will.
depth.
Can you pull that back and forth again? Just do a little bit rack again. This is amazing. Wow.
You could overemphasize depth. You could do a custom bokeh. That's the kernel, the light kernel.
God,
how
so
highlights would react. Even be able to plug in a custom shape or a lens artifacting for anamorphic, that kind of stuff. Chromatic aberration on the blooming is the kind of things that people have asked us for over the years.
Sorry,
this last example is,
well, I have somebody I have a Tim Sassoon. You probably know him. He's like a legendary visual effects artist. He's on the group as well, and he wondered who's talking. So I just want to introduce him. So, Tim, this is Will, and he's a product manager for Flame, and he's in Texas. So he's basically like Alex is in New York. I'm in Santa Monica. And Will is in Texas, and we all are in our homes like everybody else, and we're doing this meetup. I love it. So just really wanted to make a little round of introduction because Tim didn't get here that you were going to be here at the beginning.
Sure, yeah, and Tim, Alex has been kind of giving us an overview there of the tool set, this effects tab area of Flame, which is kind of like our grading and effects applied to shots on a timeline environment. We looked at A2 Beauty. We looked at the machine learning tools that are already in Flame up till now. We built a framework that is able to generate things like the equivalent of depth, but for live action content, the equivalent of normal maps, AOVs, that you would get in CG rendering, but generated from live action material only, nothing but the footage. And the way we do it is by that technique of machine learning where you feed hundreds of thousands of source images as reference and hundreds of thousands of expected results. So in the case of depth, you're saying, here's a photo of a building. Here's what the depth would look like with the sky at the back and the ground in the front. Here's another 100,000 of those. Churn on that as a machine learning process, and then package that algorithm into a video tool that can then in seconds or minutes interpret that. So that depth in this case is what is being fed into what we're proposing now as a new tool that could be a high quality defocus effect. And what we've got here is a 3D environment with some 3D geometry mixed with depth extracted live action footage, the curtains in the front and the rest of the scene in the back. But then with one control, you'd be able to rack defocus the whole mess, the whole environment. And that's how Flame thinks. That's how action works. Is once you have an environment, you can apply an effect from a camera's point of view. And this is the kind of things that we think an advanced use case would require. So then moving on to
it will
to the go ahead.
So now I'm just going to let Tim know that this whole thing is recorded. So I believe that the link will stay live and you can go back and see things when your connection is better, perhaps as well. And you can also reach out. I'm going to give some email and links at the end. So if you have any specific questions after this, you can always reach out directly to me.
Okay.
Sorry, Will.
Oh, no, not at all. And thanks for that. So this last thing that we wanted to show you as a prototype is another use of machine learning that I think would especially relate to beauty work, where Alex was was drawing rough masks. But if you had a lot of shots that all needed cheeks or nose, or you can go ahead and play, or laugh lines, or the T-zone, that part of the face that, the down the nose a bit, and the forehead. Wouldn't it be great if you could just have one click to get there? And this is an evolution of that concept that we have with head recognition. The way we get this is by generating a UV map of the human face, extracting that from the frames, and then being able to highlight parts and then reapply that, white on black that gets distorted by it being reapplied to the video. So it's like an unwrap, rewrap effect in 3D terms. But you don't need to know that as a colorist or a user. All you need to know is that your mats follow the face, and then you can pick what those mats are. We think that we could also offer a custom mode here, where you could see the unwrapped kind of intermediate and just do paint on a still frame, and isolate a mole, and then have a custom mat for this actress. Anytime you see her, it would isolate her mole, for example. But then, of course, dragging and dropping in machine learning world, you just wait a few seconds for the analysis to find the face of the new actor in the new shot, or the new take with different movement, and then you have the same setup, the same template applied on a completely different shot. Our machine learning, is working over different ethnicities and different, size of the face in the image, up until it's too small and you can't tell it's a face, but you can, you'd be able to highlight individual faces if you had multiple actors in the shot and stuff like that. So this is continuing that, but what we would call a face part extraction for relighting. This would also work with the normals map that Alex showed earlier. So you could say, I want the skin on the left side of the face, but I then want to use normals to angle where the light is coming from. Or I want to do the upper lip where there's some creases in the skin, and I want to apply A2 beauty in there. That would be the use case for this kind of tool.
I'm so excited, Will. I can't wait to use that with A2 Beauty. Cool. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And then the next one.
So yeah, hopefully these make sense. The last thing to mention was that we also see the rise, the continued rise of streaming services, delivering to Netflix, Apple TV Plus, Disney Plus, and so on. And one of the areas that we think would be good to invest in is Dolby Vision HDR authoring and display. So that also is another area that we think is important.
Nice. And then here we have the very important contact details. So, Alex, first of all, thank you for making your email available to anybody who has questions. So guys, this is Alex's, direct email. Please, email him if you have any, questions further to what you saw. Alex, somebody had a question. What tools, are you potentially missing in Flame in comparison to DaVinci Resolve? But I suggest, you can also maybe take it by email as well. Also, there was a question by Jeff earlier about the Facebook group. I forgot now, what was the Facebook group called? Alex, again, is Logic with K.
It's called Logic. Yeah, with a K.
With a K. So basically, that's a very good place, where to ask questions. And then, for all the training stuff, you go to this YouTube channel. Now, there is a basically 30-day trial that you can download now and play with it, as long as you have a Linux box, I suppose, and a Mac, I think. Is it working with the new Mac, Will? Is the new Mac Pro something you guys are testing and using it with?
Yes, we do support it in our latest version. If you grab the 30-day trial, you may have some hiccups simply because it was released before macOS Catalina came out. So watch out for that. Contact us if you need help with that. We expect there'll be a new trial not too long that will work seamlessly on macOS Catalina. But there's certainly the standard, the Flame users out there that have the update since last October. They're running great on Catalina on the Mac Pro. And that trial is also, by the way, that the trial is also available on Linux. If
Oh
that's,
yeah, and I was also very surprised to learn today that you guys give 3 years completely free license to anybody who's still in education, and I think
that's right. Yeah,
this is great.
I just
That's
posted
across the board. All
flame.
Autodesk products, Maya.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
want to learn that. You know, it's all Autodesk products.
That's
Please
a
do.
on
If
the
you have an
architecture side.
educational affiliation, you're a PhD, a master, you know, you got master, you're associated or a professor, you can access that and get your legitimate EDU license.
That's amazing. Also, a question just came through from Fumiro Sato, and he wanted to know whether this whole machine learning tools would work regardless of color spaces or resolution.
That's true. Yeah, it does. No specific limitations other than, you know, that your graphics card can handle the processing. But in terms of color space, it's we built into the tools. We optimize and read the tag of the image, and if we need to convert it, if it processes best in scene linear or log, we do that in our algorithm and don't touch the footage. But so yeah, so it does work regardless of resolution or color space.
Excellent. Excellent. So I kind of just really wanted to kind of at the end thank you guys all for your time, you know. And Nigel also just mentioned with a National Film and Television School, it's going to be great because he's studying there. Nigel, actually, I hope your studies are going well. And also, guys, I just really wanted to thank you all for being with us, and especially I want to thank Alex for this amazing presentation. Will, for being able to join us. I think, Will, you made it like a super official, with your appearance at the end. And you my color friends, I think if you wouldn't be dialing into these things, we wouldn't be doing it, and if you wouldn't be benefiting from it, we wouldn't be necessarily feel motivated to do it. And keep us, on your address book, or subscribe, as they say, on YouTube. What is going to happen is that next week we're going to tackle another very important question, which is the question of remote workflow. And we have 3 super important people, Michael Cioni from Frame.io, Joachim Zell from eFilm, who did an amazing project on the last Hollywood Post Alliance called Lost Lederhosen. It doesn't have a funny name, but it's anything but funny. The project is actually really interesting. And then we're also going to have a Jeff Olm, one of my favorite colorists, who was also famous for doing the dailies on Revenant, who's also going to be joining us completely remotely. We're going to be doing another remote session. We're going to be doing it all remotely. So it's going to be an amazing event, and it's exactly in 1 week time. Same time, same place. Also, let us know about any comments, how we can make this better, and how we can improve it, what would be interesting for you. You got my contact details. And one more time, Alex and Will, amazing job. Thank you so much. You did such a great job. I love it. And yeah, I think we have to repeat this again. This is such an important and big subject. We'll let this a little bit settle in with everybody, and then Alex, I suggested in a few months' time, when you guys have a new release,